Hey, it's Josh Bloom, another episode of the Josh Bloom Podcast. This is Josh Bloom, or you can just call me Josh or Joshua. That is my given name. If you must and you want to use 3 syllables, you go right ahead and do it. This is episode number 23. It is the long-awaited I Snuck in 10 Munchkins Part 2. Now, if you are a subscriber to my Substack, you could have read this piece a long time ago, being a week or so, but that seems like a long time ago these days. So let me remind you to please go over to superjews.substack.com and just punch in that email address and you will get my writing delivered right to your inbox, and also updates about the podcast. And if you are so inclined, you can actually buy a paid subscription. Now, wouldn't that be nice? It'll pay for the electricity that I'm using right now to power this microphone. So here we go with I Snuck in 10 Munchkins Part 2, but stop 1. If you haven't listened to Part 1, go and do that first. Scroll to episode 18 of the Josh Bloom Podcast, and you can listen to it there, and then, come on back. And stop 2. I reference several TikTok posts in this article, which I have conveniently reposted to YouTube for you. Even more conveniently, there are links to those posts in the show notes. One last thing, I refer to a photograph that you're just not going to be able to see in a medium that only lets you listen. So if you want to see that picture, go over to superjews.substack.com and you can look at it there. I Snuck in 10 Munchkins, Part 2. Part 2 of 2. Examining Josh Bloom's antisocial behavior in coffee shops, such as Starbucks, and the hypocritical justification of this behavior through illustrating the bad behavior of others. Part 2 of 2. Introduction. Everything you are about to hear is meant to make you laugh. While rooted in my reality, my sarcasm isn't nearly as important to me as empathy. We are all here for a short time, after all. Lashing out is not a priority. Levity is. These are my actual behaviors in actual coffee shops. I Snuck in 10 Munchkins. Part 2. Seeing a patron sleeping at the Starbucks would not be out of line. You heard that, and you were not shocked, right? You weren't like, that would never happen. You were like, have I seen anyone sleeping at the Starbucks? Maybe I have. Anything can happen at Starbucks. You know this. When I say anything, let's take coffee out of the equation. Starbucks is as ubiquitous as McDonald's, and like your average McDonald's, all forms of behavior are on the table. Sometimes all forms of behavior are literally happening on the table. If I wanted to, I could bring a Panera coffee into Starbucks, sit down, work, or hang out, and never order a damn thing, and you know this. I have seen the baristas, I still call them baristas, not workers, because I am human, unlike those who would never, treated worse than an overshaken drink that the average patron likes to tell themselves is coffee and not a whipped cream-topped milkshake. Sure, sweetie. Sure, sir. Believe what you like. I know that you do. There was a time when I would spend the money on egg bites, low calorie, and a small iced chocolate almond milk shaken espresso, actually a discontinued item and also low calorie, and sit there and do my work, but no more. There was a time when there was no Starbucks near me, but no more. There are 2. There was a time when I had the Starbucks app on my phone, but no more. As all infinitely greedy corporations eventually do, Starbucks began to cut back on the bonus offers in its app while raising prices at the same time. Even discovering music there became a chore and a bore, as they likely got rid of anyone at the home office who cared about something other than repeating Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, a song I used to love until corporate America changed that every 28 minutes or so. The company so violated my natural inclination towards loyalty — the USB charging stations at every table are a nice touch, but I didn't feel touched — that I found myself feeling okay about going in there to work and forgetting to make a purchase. The idea that came next is one that I have yet to put into action. I want to attempt to bring a coffee from a competitor, branded cup and all, and sit there drinking it in full view. I predict no consequences of any kind, even if I were to do this multiple times. Coincidentally, at the time of this writing, Starbucks has just announced the end of its open door policy, which I had no idea existed in the first place. As you might guess, this policy allowed people to congregate in the Starbucks and use its bathrooms without buying anything. To quote, Starbucks is reversing its open door policy after almost 7 years, now requiring that people make a purchase if they want to hang out at its coffee shops or use its restrooms. The coffee giant said on Monday that a new code of conduct, which will be posted in all company-owned North American stores, will also ban discrimination or harassment, consumption of outside alcohol, smoking, vaping, drug use, and panhandling. If you want to watch a 4-minute tangent dealing with my reaction to this bizarre announcement, you can follow the YouTube link in the show notes. Now that I am aware that this monolithic corporation that makes insane margins on dirty water is trying to make it harder to carry out my mission to carry in a competitor's coffee, I am even more determined. This endeavor would be facilitated by my membership in the Panera Sip Club. Yes, we have a cameo by another big player in the coffee game, the one where I spend most of my cafe time. While some may consider Panera more of a fast casual bistro and not a coffee shop, many deride it as glorified hospital food, which I feel is more of an ageist comment directed at its clientele, which is not inaccurate in theory but unacceptable in practice. As a member of the Sip Club who gets to pour myself coffee all day, every day if I want, I am thinking about coffee when I am thinking about Panera. You can look up the details yourself, but for less than $100 a year, depending on what kind of discount you can rustle, i.e. way less than $100 if you're crafty, you get access to all of their drip coffees, teas, sodas, and whatever those fruity beverages are, all day, every day. It's such a good deal that I expect them to take it away soon. I spend so much work time in the Panera because of the Sip Club. Membership has its privileges isn't a slogan that was conjured for this corporation, but I do consider the frequent $1 bagel offers, butter is free, to be a privilege that offsets the shortfall of hominess that one would experience at an actual coffee shop. I keep my head down, soak up that free internet, and willingly compromise my soul by breaking the rules. A long-abandoned field by the Parkway exit turned into a Shell station with a 24/7 deli over the past year, and to cultivate a consumer base, they offered the NYC-style bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll, salt, pepper, ketchup, for a measly $2.99. I knew this deal wouldn't last. It doubled the other day, and they didn't even say anything. That's the end of that. During the $2.99 time, I would stop there on my way to Panera and walk right in with that sucker. I didn't even attempt to hide my outside food as I drank my coffee and pecked away at my keyboard. In between bites, I would make TikToks, talking into my little wireless microphone to clearly record my voice without disturbing anyone or making them aware I was talking about them. I am cordial with the staff and have even tidied up the coffee station from time to time. Unfortunately, not on the day that the first Karen of 2025 arrived. A full-length rant about this experience can be viewed at the link in the show notes. Also, do you know that Panera refuses, I found out this comes down from corporate, to put splash sticks, the stoppers that go into the coffee lid to keep it from spilling, onto their coffee station? I have theories as to why this is. Again, a full-length rant about this experience can be viewed at the link in the show notes. These examples alone justify the compromised morality that allows me to bring my egg sandwich into a place that already serves egg sandwiches. Full transparency. I have also brought homemade food, Egg McMuffins, buy one and get one free in the McDonald's app, and Dunkin' Donuts into the Panera. Shameless, I know, but not as shameless as what I will describe next about my fellow human beings. There exists a two-person booth that I used to sit in. Used to. I will no longer sit there. It is one of two booths that faces the store's front window and looks out onto the parking lot. But since it is situated a good 100 feet or so into the floor plan from the glass, there is a nice panoramic perspective. Very feng shui and conducive to positive thought and creativity. Unfortunately, the booth is now haunted. The reason I will no longer sit there is both emotional and practical. Emotionally, it would bring on PTSD, and practically, I am not convinced that what took place in this booth does not still have the biological power to end me. On the day I sat in the booth directly in front of the disaster area I am illustrating, refer to the photo at superjews.substack.com and think about someone sitting in the row behind you on an airplane. A gentleman had a cough. Now, we are long past mask wearing, and I feel like it is safe to assume that anyone who would violate the air in the way this person did isn't vaccinated anyway. As he talked loudly with his female companion, he coughed, and coughed, and coughed, and coughed. Can a keyboard and digital document run out of ink? I could find out by typing "and coughed" until we either knew for sure or I wore my pointing fingers down to the knuckles. I fully expected to feel spray on the back of my neck. The man kept on coughing, talking, and eating, coughing, talking, and eating, coughing, talking, and eating, coughing, talking, and eating. His companion was undeterred, clearly used to being coated in this man's mucus. I did what I could. The half-hearted turning around to attempt eye contact, the under-the-breath, maybe you should go home, and do you need a glass of water? None of this even came close to being effective, and I should have known. A person so incredibly lacking in self-awareness is not susceptible to any social clues, because to be susceptible to social clues, one must acknowledge that society is a thing. I looked around for comfort and for acknowledgement of what I was experiencing. Another patron facing me and therefore facing Coffee McCofferson, a.k.a. Wet Cough, rolled his eyes and shook his head. At least I had an ally. When he was done destroying the booth, I watched him get up to leave, clearly oblivious to the danger zone he had created. I feel for anyone I see sitting in that booth to this day. Unfortunately, it is not the only area of the store to be avoided. On another day, I found myself once again asking, is it me or is it you? As I was forced to stick earbuds in to drown out the cannon blasts of Wet Chew, my name for the single gentleman one table over. It sounds like what a Foley artist for a Hollywood film would create as the crowd chewing. My empathy kicks in. Josh, he is here for a long time on a Sunday morning. Maybe he lost his wife and child. Maybe he is about to go to work outdoors in sub-freezing temperatures on the weekend. Maybe he just came from the wife and child's funeral. None of these scenarios have anything to do with trying to annoy you, Josh. And yet, if it were me, I would be aware of how I slap my gums together in public. I would be aware that I would not want to make someone else's Sunday morning coffee distasteful because of the original soundtrack of my mouth. I would be aware that there could very well be someone like me nearby documenting this in the hopes of profiting, or at least increasing his free subscribers from superjews.substack.com for these essential observations. I guess it's 360 by Charlie XCX on repeat for a while. Volume set to where my phone pops a warning. Typing in rhythm yields results I am satisfied with, and also reveals that while the combination of Wet Cough, Wet Chew, and referencing both in a rant that also works in the band Wet Leg is mildly clever, the overall state of affairs is decidedly not brat. However, it does represent the permission structure I need to condone my own semi-sociopathic behavior. For the last time, a full-length rant about this experience can be viewed at the link in the show notes. I snuck in 10 Munchkins. I am not proud of this, but I am proud of admitting it. I am also proud of how my transgressions do not even approach the universe of awful behavior that I observe around me. And yet, I recognize that calling out the behavior of others this way, in such great detail, for my amusement and hopefully your own, is just another transgressive act that compounds the damage already done. Luckily, if you've made it this far, both in this piece and in getting to know what I am about, you know that all of this was an exercise in levity, as I stated at the start. All we can do in life when acting on the fundamental and immovable impulses embedded in our DNA is to laugh at them. The majority of us are not sociopathic or psychopathic. I shudder to think of how one lives with such an affliction, and the thought of those they victimize stuns me. If you are a person like me who notices the minutiae of human behavior and finds it as momentarily irritating as I do, I hope you will channel that awareness into creative work such as this. I am not kidding, however, when I point out that we are currently living in our timeline of not caring culture, and that coffee shops present a perfect opportunity to examine the behavior of others and how that behavior relates to and influences our own. This is how not caring can become caring. With this knowledge, we can see how we are and change how we act, which is the only way to change the acts of others. Hey, it's Josh. I'm back. Thank you for listening to I Snuck in 10 Munchkins Part 2. I hope you did listen or read Part 1 before you read or listened to Part 2, because it will make a lot more sense that way. But if you didn't, I don't know what to do about it. If you want to write to me and say, hey, I'm admitting to you that I screwed up and listened to them out of order and come after me, go right ahead. It would be nice to hear from you. I will be back next week with another edition of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration, so please stay tuned. Please visit me on social media. You can find all my links at superjews.com, all the links to my writing at superjews.com, all the links to everything I do and everything I hope to be at superjews.com. I will be back next week. Have a great one.